More critically injured people are due in on ferry boats probably in about an hour or so.
More
we'll
people,
see what
you
happens
say?
then. I'm sorry?
More people are still coming in?
Yes, sir. More people are coming in, and they're expected to come in probably for most of the night.
Do the people who are running the triage center give any sense to reporters there whether the people they're treating were actually inside the World Trade Center and managed to get out before the explosion, or might they just as easily have been pedestrians in the area at the time?
This afternoon, it was a little of both. There were people who did get out in time, and there were people who just happened to be caught on the street. At this point, they're not even sure how many more critically injured people are coming in. They've just been amassed in one of the meeting rooms here down at the harbor, and some of them are coming out with big boxes of medical equipment. So right now, nobody knows how many people are coming in or how many ferries have been put into work tonight.
But do you get the sense that there actually is an operation at the scene of what were the World Trade Center towers to try to rescue people who might still be alive there?
There is that sense. Everybody's being pretty realistic and not I don't want to say not holding out too much hope, but just not making any judgments as to who's coming in and where they're coming from, whether it's from the building itself. Right now, the hospitals in New York are just overwhelmed, so this seems to be ferrying people seems to be the most efficacious way of getting people the help they need and to a hospital as quickly as possible.
Well, Carrie, thank you very much for telling us that. Carrie Nolan of member station WNYC reporting to us from the Jersey side of New York Harbor. She's at Atlantic Highlands in New Jersey.
Here in Washington, rescue crews are at work at this hour at the Pentagon. They're looking for survivors from this morning's attacks and starting the grim effort to recover bodies. NPR's Steve Inskeep joins us from the Pentagon. Steve, the latest there?
No, it appears again that perhaps the fire is under control, at least from our vantage point. Officials earlier in the evening declared this fire to be under control. Up there it goes again. Over the last half hour, however, Noah, the fire has begun bursting through the Pentagon roof again and again, a great distance, in fact, from the place where the plane originally struck. And once again, right now, we are seeing tongues of flame licking up into the sky and smoke continuing to rise from the building. As that happens, more rescuers are arriving. They are bringing what appeared to be cadaver dogs, bringing in cranes. Army troops are coming in, convoy after convoy of people to try to begin working through that rubble and see what they can find.
Any estimate about how many people may have been killed in that plane crash?
The Associated Press is giving us a number based from a Pentagon official of perhaps 100, but I have to say, I mean, based on any experience from covering disasters, that's got to be a wild guess at this point. The military is trying to get a handle on how many people really were in the building, asking people to call. One thing that may keep the casualty number lower than it might otherwise have been is that we are told that a portion of the building where the plane struck had been recently renovated and not all the offices were filled.
The question occurs today, why didn't somebody try to shoot down that aircraft as it came screaming into the Pentagon?
Well, I think there are maybe two answers to that, although we're speculating a little here. One, eyewitnesses who talked to me said this plane flew in very low, which means you would not see it from miles and miles away. You would have a very short time to react and try to get a missile, a shoulder-fired missile, or whatever the Pentagon, whatever the military may have had on the roof to shoot at that. The second thing is, we heard in the newscast at the top of the hour, Noah, that the transponders on these planes were shut off. The transponder is a device on the plane that communicates with the ground, makes it easier to find it on the radar, which means that any early warning radar, any military or civilian radar, would have had great difficulty tracking that plane and getting an early sense that it was heading someplace that it should not have gone.
And at this hour, this evening, what is the military response to this day?
General Hugh Shelton told us, your armed forces are ready. And I think that's the bottom line. Officials made it clear to us that either they do not know yet or are not willing to say yet who they think is responsible for this, but they are prepared, I would presume, to respond with maximum force. Not only, as we heard from Don Gagne, against the terrorists if they can be found, but any nation that may have helped them.
Thank you, Steve.
Happy to help.
NPR's Steve Inskeep talking with us from the Pentagon. You're listening to special coverage of today's terrorist attacks from NPR News.
From NPR News, special coverage of today's terrorist attacks in New York City and in Washington, D.C. I'm Linda Wertheimer.
And I'm Noah Adams. We're joined now by Hassan Astaneh, a professor of structural engineering at the University of California in Berkeley. He joins us from San Francisco. Professor Astaneh, let's talk a bit about these 110-story twin World Trade Center towers collapsing, almost imploding. What do you see when you watch that videotape?
What I saw was what we call a classic case of progressive collapse. What happened here was not really collapse of a structure due to impact of the plane. The plane hitting the structure, in fact, was no match to the strength and mass of this structure. The weight of plane and the structure of plane is very, very weak compared to the structure